Listen, we got to just jump right in because, there's a story to tell. And it's one that unless you look really, really hard for, you just wouldn't know exists. Now, Rico, do you remember when we talked about Jim Harbaugh and a comment he made at Sound Mind, Sound Body, say last Thursday?
Yeah, where he kind of came out and defended Bo, said Bo he knew would have handled this thing before breakfast.
You remember how he didn't mention anything about the victims?
Absolutely said nothing. He actually defended Bo.
You are aware that many of the victims are former players at Michigan and former teammates of his?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Remember how we said that was a really bad idea? And how that probably is going to come back to bite him?
Yep.
Well, that story is available to you. Some intrepid reporting by Rainier Sabin. The problem for Rainier Sabin, who we did reach out to and invite on this program, but he's traveling today. It seems like Rainier's employer doesn't want you to see his reporting because the biggest story in local sports is a former All-Big Ten player at Michigan bombing Jim Harbaugh and claiming that there is an absolute major divide in the Michigan football family. Now, that would seem like major news with the Tigers 50 games out of first and no playoff action here locally. But if you go to Freep.com, it's not amongst the top 5, the top 10, or the top 15 stories. And in fact, this story's behind a paywall. Now, they'll show you a picture of Keith Appling with an AK-47. That's not paywalled. This story is the most interesting thing in local sports, and the Free Press seemingly does not want you to read it. And correct me if I'm wrong, you haven't heard a word of it on the station today. So here we are to do our thing. Now, luckily for you, I have the article, but out of respect for the Free Press, which I have little, and for Rainier Sabin, which I have a lot because he's the only writer seemingly asking any questions and doing any reporting, I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. It is paywalled. I will read you a couple of quotes that will give you a good enough idea for me to then give you the opinion I have, Rico to give you his opinions, and for us collectively to have a conversation. Does that sound like a good time to you, Ricardo?
Sounds like a good time.
All righty then. All right, Jon Vaughn, former All-Big Ten. I believe he was the Offensive Player of the Year in 1990. Jon Vaughn is involved in the lawsuit, the 51-year-old retired running back. Harbaugh's comments did not go over well with him or, according to him, dozens of teammates. Let me read you those Harbaugh comments, since many of you probably aren't aware of them. Why? Because the media seemingly is on the Michigan payroll and not wanting to talk about this story. Here's Harbaugh at Sound Mind, Sound Body, asked about Bo Schembechler's legacy moving forward. Quote, Bo Schembechler, there was nothing I saw in the times when I was a kid there. My dad was on staff there, and when I played there, he never sat on anything. He took care of it before the sun went down. He never procrastinated on anything. That's the Bo I know. There's nothing that was swept under the rug or ignored. He addressed everything in a timely fashion. That's the Bo that I knew. Close quote. Nothing about the victims. Left no room that the victims were telling the truth. And essentially, without calling them liars, ... away we go. So Vaughn, that day, his phone rang off the hook. Texts, emails, phone calls. Several former Wolverine teammates contacted him. So did past Wolverines from other eras. Survivors of the sex abuse scandal reached out to him. Family members. Vaughn estimated 20 to 25 conversations. Many of them began the same way. Quote, did you see what the bleep Harbaugh just said? Here is where, and I'll read you this quote, and again, you have to read the rest of this at Freep.com because it is paywalled. Why? I have no idea. It's a massive story.
You would think they would be driving people to the website.
You think this would be the headline on Freep.com? I know it would be if it was another school 60 miles up the road, but I digress. I thought it was completely heartless, Vaughn told the Freep. He's not a representative of the players, so why is it he makes these comments as if he's an authority speaking for all of us? Because he's one of us? You can say you knew Bo one way, well, we knew him another. You have more credibility in that question? He went on to say that speaking of Michigan football alumni, quote, this has fractured us tremendously. There's a lot more, and credit to Rainier Sabin for doing it. And again, we offered Rainier a spot on the show today. He is traveling. Why the Freep doesn't want you to read this, why you have to look so hard for this story, I don't know. But let me tell you what I think, Rico. That's what we're paid to do. I think Jim Harbaugh is on very dangerous ground here. And I said it to you when he made the comment. You are going out and you are showing a callousness towards the victims. He has spoken twice publicly. These are facts now, people. Facts are inconvenient for you. He has spoken twice about Dr. Anderson. He has not mentioned the victims once. Not once.
No.
And the second time, he doubled down on his hero. The problem for him is twofold. A, you're saying it without saying it, that these people are somehow not truthful as survivors of sexual abuse. The double problem is some of them are your teammates. Many of them are former Michigan football family. And I'm telling you, he's put himself on very dangerous ground because here's now where we are. Jim Harbaugh has now, whether intentional or not, has now struck out against the family. In his own defense, to go to the pro Bo, blindfold, let's put the blinders on. This is Bo, legend, not hearing this, la, la, la. You've now attacked. How many of that 800, 900 person lawsuit? How many are Michigan football alumni? A lot. And now, here's my thing. Look, you're on shaky ground because now it wouldn't surprise me in the least if you're in the crosshairs. This is a major lawsuit. And now you angered the people who were there with you. You've angered people in that family. You've called them, well, you haven't called them a liar directly, but you've basically just said Bo would handle everything by lunch. Nope. I don't know what they're talking about. Guess what? Boy, I tell you, he better hope there's not a story. He better hope there's not a joke. He better hope there's not an example, because I'm telling you, you are a coach without a buyout. You are a coach who took a 50% pay cut. You are the coach of a team whose team doctor for 30 years was seemingly empowered by the legend whose statue stands outside your football building. And they are going to pay a lawsuit that is going to be in excess of $1 billion. It would not surprise me in the least, Rico, if this story is just beginning now, because Harbaugh once again put his foot in his mouth. Again.
No, he did. He did. And listen to exactly how he sounds, because it's so matter-of-factly. He didn't leave gray area. He didn't leave, well, you misinterpreted what I had to say. Here's what he had to say as sound mind, sound body. His own words.
School pays for a report, and multiple instances he was made aware and didn't get it done. Oh, boy.
Right. And to come out there so matter-of-factly, Mike, you're right. If down the line, this could end up being his Rafael Palmeiro moment, where he sat there and wagged his finger at Congress and said, I didn't do that. I didn't take steroids. This could be that moment for Jim, because you were so, oh, no, Bo wouldn't do anything. That's not the Bo that I know. He would have taken care of this. Basically, this doesn't happen at Michigan. I don't know what these people are talking about. That is a slap in the face, because those were some of your former teammates or some of the Michigan football family. Is it divided? Probably more. There's already been a divide at Michigan. Either you're in the club or you're outside the club. There's no in between. And this comes from former players, both young and old. They say, yeah, if you're part of the old boys club, they take care of you. If you're not, yeah, way to go. See you. Thanks for sticking around. With him saying this, as you said, I wonder how far this is going to go, because this could come back to bite him, because now you sided. You didn't come out and say anything about the victims. You didn't say anything about it. You defended your hero. You defended your Halloween costume that you dress up as every day and said, there's no way this can happen. I wonder, it leads me to think, what's Michigan going to do now? Because as stated in the article, as Vaughn says, he comes out like he's the representative for the team and for the program, for the school. He's not. And whether he knows something or not, whether he witnessed something or not, whatever happened while Jim was there and what he knows, you got a bunch of people who are saying, no, this happened. You got the school paying for something who said, no, this did happen. 800 some people came out. This isn't one or two, because we're always like that. If one person comes out as he said, she said, you got to look to see, well, is this person trying to gain something? But as the number starts going higher and higher, you start thinking to yourself, maybe I need to look at this thing differently. I mean, look at Deshaun Watson. When the first case came out, we're like, yeah, no big deal. Now it's like, it's a big deal. When things came out at Michigan State with Nassar, at Penn State, the first couple of people were always skeptical. But for him to come out there and say so definitively, not happening, didn't happen.
Well, now you're getting the former player response.
Right.
And Jon Vaughn has been vocal. Many players are not vocal. Nobody wants to talk about this. As Jon Vaughn says in the article, this is not some badge of honor. This is hard.
Right.
So my question is, has Harbaugh put himself moving forward on very shaky ground? Because this is the old boys club. These are the players from the 80s and the 90s, which makes me and Rico feel old. And Harbaugh, in truth, look, he's alienated a lot of former Wolverines, because this is a lawsuit where there are potentially hundreds of former Wolverines involved. That you're putting yourself on shaky ground, because I'll tell you this, when you double and triple down and you don't leave room for the victims, you don't talk about the cost it's had on them, you don't talk about them at all, boy, I'll tell you.
How about this? No comment. Can't talk about it. Just not, because here's the thing. What's going to happen in a few weeks at Big Ten Media Day? People are going to ask him. It's not just going to be the Michigan beat reporters there. You're going to have everybody else say, hey, Jim, remember the things that you said? Would you like to follow up on this? If you're Michigan, he can't go.
When's Big Ten Media Day?
I think it's, I want to say beginning of July or somewhere around. He can't go. You can't send him to be. You got to send Mike Hart. You got to send another assistant coach. You got to send Clinksdale.
I would just tell you, I wouldn't be surprised if between now and then there's more. Jon Vaughn's not going to be the only one who's going to come out and say something.
No. And to upset your teammates, because it's almost, as he said, you don't want to come out. You don't want to say anything if you're Jon Vaughn. But, man, you kind of crossed the line, because you made it seem like I'm lying, that I'm making stuff up.
Right.
And this was traumatic enough for me that I don't have support from my own Michigan football family.
That's shaky ground to me.